Role fighter aircraft national origin Soviet Union manufacturer Mikoyan-Gurevich first flight 24 May 1952 SM2/I-360 Introduction March 1955 Status retired in the Soviet Union, in limited use by some foreign countries primary users Soviet Air Forces, historical, People's Liberation Army Air Force, historical. Produced 1954-1968 number build 2,172, excluding production in Czechoslovakia and China. Developed from Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-17 variants Shenyang J6. The Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-19, Russian, 19, NATO reporting name, Farmer, ISA Soviet second generation, single-seat, twin-jet fighter aircraft and was the world's first mass-produced supersonic aircraft. It was the first Soviet production aircraft capable of supersonic speeds in level flight. A comparable U.S. Century Series fighter was the North American F-100 Super Sabre, although the MiG-19 primarily fought against the more modern McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II and Republic F-105 Thunderchief over North Vietnam. 1. This aircraft was originally used by the Soviet Union but it was later used by the People's Liberation Army Air Force. Design and development. In 1950 the Mikoyan-Gurevich, MiG, Design Bureau, also known as OKB 155, began work on a new fighter aircraft, intended to have a greater range than the existing MiG-15 and MiG-17 aircraft, and capable of reaching supersonic speeds in level flight. MiG goes to use two of the new Mikoyan 5 axial jet engines, a scaled-down version of the Mikoyan 3 that powered the Tupolev Tu-16 bomber, for its new fighter. 2. 3. As a testbed for the new engine, OKB 155 was authorized on the 20th of April, 1951 to convert one-off prototype MiG-17S, replacing the single Plymouth VK1 engine with two 19.60 kN, 4,410 lbf, M5S, later replaced by 21.08 kN, 4,740 lbf, M5As, with test, designated SM-1, or I-340, flying late in 1951. 2. 4. While the SM-1 was a useful test. 3. Its performance was less than expected, and first resulted in an afterburner being designed for the M5 resulting in the M5F, reaching 26.45 kN, 5,950 lbf, with reheat. 5. While the SM-1 was a test bed, the SM-2, or I-360, was intended as the required supersonic escort fighter, with work authorized on the 10th of August, 1951. The SM-2 was a twin-engined, mid-winged aircraft. Its thin wings, which had been designed at TSAGI, the Soviet Central Aerohydrodynamic Institute, for supersonic flight were swept back at an angle of 55 degrees and had a single wing fence on each side. Unusually, a T-tail was fitted. Armament was two new Delman N3737mm cannon located in the leading edge of the aircraft's wings, near the wing roots. The guns had been moved compared to those in the MiG-15 and -17 to avoid ingestion of gun blast gases causing surging of aircraft's engines. 3. The first SM-2. The SM-2/1 was sent to the Letno-Isledovatelski Institute, EN Flight Research Institute, LII, in April 1952 for testing, and was flown for the first time on the 24th of May 1952, with test. Pilot G.S.E. Duff at the aircraft's controls. 3. 6. With the UN reheated M5 engines, the SM-2 could not exceed the speed of sound in level flight, so reheated M5F engines were substituted. 6. While the new engines improved performance, the aircraft was found to have handling problems, particularly at high angles of attack, where the aircraft was prone to spinning. To solve these problems, the aircraft's horizontal tail was lowered, with other changes including moving the aircraft's air brakes and deepening the wing fences, with the modifications causing the aircraft to be redesignated SM-2A and then SM-2B.7.8. The M5F still generated inadequate thrust, and so the Mikoyan Engine Design Bureau developed a new engine to replace it. The M9B later redesigned the Tumansky Road 9, rated at 25.5 kN, 5,700 lbf, dry and 31.87 kN, 7,160 lbf, with reheat. 3. When fitted with the new engines, the SM-2B became the SM-9, first flying in this form on the 5th of January, 1954. The SM-9's performance impressed the Soviet authorities, and it was ordered into production as the MiG-19 on the 17th of February, 1954, despite the fact that factory testing had only just started. 9, 10, 11. The rush to get the MiG-19 into service resulted in initial production aircraft having a number of serious problems. The type suffered a number of in-flight explosions, eventually traced to poor insulation between the aircraft's engines and fuel tanks in the rear fuselage. Overheating of these tanks could cause fuel explosions. This was eventually partly solved by fitting a metal heat shield between the engines and the tanks. 12. The aircraft's elevators proved ineffective at supersonic speeds, and an all-moving slap tail was tested by the second and third SM-9 prototypes, and later included in the major production type, the MiG-19S, which also featured an improved armament. 13. At the same time that the daylight escort fighter was developed from the SM-2 and SM-9 into the MiG-19 and MiG-19S, work went on in parallel to design and build a radar-equipped all-weather fighter, with first prototype SM-7 /1 flying for the first time on the 28th of August, 1954. This prototype had a similar airframe to the first SM-9, including the conventional fixed horizontal tail, with the second and third SM-7s introducing similar changes to those tested on the SM-9 prototypes, including the slap tail. 14. The all-weather fighter entered production as the MiG-19P in 1955. Major differences from the MiG-19S included RP-1I Jumrad radar in the aircraft's nose, with small radomes in the center and on the top lip of the air intake, and an armament of 2 cannon in the aircraft's wing roots. 14. From 1957, production of all-weather fighters switched to the missile-equipped MiG-19 PM, with an armament of 4 K5M air-to-air missiles, with the cannon removed. 15. In 1955, following American introduction of high-altitude reconnaissance balloons and overflights by British Canberra aircraft, which could not be intercepted by existing aircraft, together with intelligence airports of the development of the Lockheed U-2 with an even greater ceiling. Development began on our specialist high-altitude version of the MiG-19, the MiG-19 SV, which entered limited production. This had more powerful engines and was lightened, with seatback armor and one of the guns removed, while flap settings were adjusted to give greater lift at higher altitudes, and a new pressure suit was introduced. These changes increased the aircraft's ceiling from 17,500 m, 57,400 feet, to 18,500 m, 60,700 feet. 16, 17, 18. The prototype MiG-19 SV was further modified, as the MiG-19 SVK, with increased wingspan, giving a ceiling of 19,100 m, 62,700 feet, but this was still inadequate to deal with the U-2, and effort was switched to the rocket boosters. 19. Operational history. Soviet Union. Deliveries of the new fighter to the Soviet Air Forces, VVS, began in June 1955, with the type being publicly unveiled on the 3rd of July that year, when 48 MiG-19s took part in a flypast during an air show at Tushino Airfield, Moscow. 12. During their service with Soviet anti-air defense and in East Germany, MiG-19s were involved in multiple interceptions of Western reconnaissance aircraft. The first documented encounter with a Lockheed U-2 took place in the autumn of 1957. The MiG-19 pilot reported seeing the aircraft, but could not make up 3,000 (9,800 feet) difference in altitude. When Francis Gary Powers's U-2 was shot down in the 1960 incident, one pursuing MiG-19P was also hit by the salvo of S-75 Dvina, NATO, Satu guideline, missiles, killing the pilot Sergei Safronov. 20. In a highly controversial incident, on the 1st of July 1960, a MiG-19 shot down an RB-47H, S/N53 to 4,281, reconnaissance aircraft in international airspace over the Arctic Circle with 4 of the crew killed and 2 captured by the Soviets. They were released in 1961. In another incident, on the 28th of January 1964, a MiG-19 shot down a T-39 Sabreliner which had strayed into East German airspace while on a training mission. All 3 crew members were killed. East Asia. China. The first use and loss of a U.S. fighter to a MiG-19, J-6, was in 1965 when a USAF Lockheed F-104 starfighter piloted by Captain Philip E. Smith was attacked by a Playfe aircraft over Hainan Island. His starfighter took cannon fire which damaged a portion of his wing and missile mount. Smith gave chase and did receive missile tone on the MiG, but shortly after pressing his missile firing button, his starfighter lost all power. He ejected and was captured. Smith was held prisoner until released on the 15th of March 1973, due to improving US-China relations following U.S. President Richard Nixon's visit to China in 1972. 21. 22. Vietnam. The Vietnam People's Air Force, VPAF, began receiving the MiG-19 at the end of Operation Rolling Thunder, which ended in 1968. Despite their limited numbers, MiG-19s were involved in extensive combat during Operations Linebacker and Linebacker II. The VPAF claimed 7 victories over U.S. aircraft using the MiG-19, all of which were F-4 Phantom IIS. 23. The MiG-19 was tested by U.S. pilots in the United States in 1969 after receiving an F-6 J-6 export model from Pakistan. N1. 24. In addition to finding the aircraft to have a good canopy allowing good visibility for the pilot, along with 3 hard-hitting 13 cannons, U.S. pilots found the MiG-19 J-6/F-6 to be an excellent fighter. Like the MiG-17, it could easily outturn the Phantom, and could out-accelerate the F-4 out to Mach 1.2, but was slower than the MiG-21. 25. However, the MiG-19's strongest fault was its extremely short range, as one U.S. test pilot remarked, after going in full afterburner at low altitude for 5 minutes, the MiG driver will be looking for a place to land. 26. This, combined with the aircraft's twin engines, which were difficult to maintain, made the MiG-19 unpopular with North Vietnamese pilots. 27. The North Vietnamese government decided in early 1969 to strengthen its air defenses by creating a 3rd Jet Fighter Unit, the 925th Fighter Regiment. This unit would consist of late-model MiG-17s and the newly acquired MiG-19s, nearly all of which were Shenyang J-6s from the People's Republic of China, PRC. The regiment was established at Yenbai, and by April 1969, 9 combat-rated MiG-19 pilots were posted for combat duty. While some of North Vietnam's MiG-17s and all of their MiG-21s were supplied by the Soviet Union, the MiG-19s, J6 models, were supplied by the PRC, which seldom exceeded 54 MiG-19 SIN number. 28. The MiG-19 lacked mounts for air-to-air missiles, but it had the one advantage over the early model F-4 Phantom II: it was armed with cannons. Both MiG-19s had three 30mm cannons which were notable for their large muzzle flash, 29, when fired. The aircraft were loaded with 90 rounds per cannon, giving approximately 6 seconds of firing time. A single 2-second burst of 90 shells could impact a U.S. aircraft with 81 pound, 37 kilograms, of metal. 30. This contrasted to a U.S. 20mm cannon such as the M61 Vulcan, which would deliver 39 pound, 18 kilograms, of metal. 31. U.S. sources claim that 10 of MiG-19s were lost in aerial combat. On the 2nd of June, 1972, a MiG-19 was the first recorded jet fighter to be shot down in aerial combat by cannon fire at supersonic speeds, 32, by a USAF F-4 Phantom flown by Phil Handley. According to the VBF, from 1965 to 1972, North Vietnamese MiG-19s shot down 13 enemy aircraft and helicopters, while 5 MiG-19s were lost, 4 shot down by enemy aircraft and 1 by friendly fire, and 1 pilot was killed. 33. Air-to-air victories. The following are Chinese and Vietnamese air-to-air kills, confirmed by U.S. sources. All were achieved with 30mm cannon shells. MiG-19 /J6 Air Combat Victories, 1965-1972, 34, 35. Data MiG-19 unit aircraft destroyed aircraft unit /comments 9201965 unknown F-10 Fork Starfighter Rusev 435th Tactical Fighter Squadron /downed by Chinese MiGs. 36, 37, 8-21-1967 unknown. 2. A-6 Intruders USNVA 196 /downed by Chinese MiGs, 38, 5-10-1972-925 Fighter Regiment, FR, F-4D Phantom to use of 555th TFS 5-10-1972-925 THFR F-4 Yusuf. 58th TFS 5-18-1972-925 THFR F-4 Deuce of 421st TFS. Middle East. Egypt. One of the first Egyptian MiG-19 units was the 15th Air Brigade, consisting of numbers 20 and 21 squadrons, which became operational at Fayed with a forward location at Malaise in the early 1960s. 39. In 1962, Egyptian MiG-19s saw some action in the ground attack role during the North Yemen Civil War. The first reported air combat in the Middle East with the MiG-19 happened on the 29th of November, 1966, when an Israeli Air Force, IAF, Dassault Mirage 3 shot down 2 Egyptian MiG-19s which were trying to intercept an Israeli reconnaissance Piper J-3 Cub in Israeli airspace. The first MiG was destroyed with R.530 radar-guided missile fired from less than a mile away, marking the first aerial kill for the French-made missile. The second MiG-19 was dispatched with cannon fire. 40. Around 80 MiG-19s were in service with Egypt during the Six-Day War in June 1967, but more than half of them were destroyed on the ground during the opening Israeli airstrikes of Operation Focus. Israeli pilots, however, did find the MiG-19 a potentially dangerous adversary because of its performance, maneuverability, and heavy armament. Following the war, the Egyptians reorganized their surviving MiG-19